the title of the presentation is The Issues of NOMA, Opportunities, Chances, and the Critique. And the purpose of this presentation is to deliver a critical consideration regarding NOMA and its presence in theology, philosophy, and natural sciences. First off, let's think a bit about the following problem. What causes a steady decrease in the number of practicing Catholics? Is it because of new atheism? Well, maybe. The culprits are naturalism and scienticism. Or perhaps it's because of various scandals that undermine the credibility of the clergy. While these problems are prevalent, it's important to notice that sheer disbelief, or lack of faith, in other words, may stem from the differences between scientific image of the world and its theological counterpart. Initially, we have to define very briefly and quickly what is NOMA. So NOMA stands for non-overlapping magisterium. It was created by Stephen Jay Gould as a form of methodological tool, and it was designed with the purpose of separating the fields of intellectual inquiries that are conducted by both natural sciences and theology. In theory, NOMA was supposed to deliver a meaningful distinction between these two fields of scientific work, and that was in order to secure the academic position of theology and science, while also keeping them fairly conflictless. The problem arose when more and more theologians realized that religion could benefit from actually overlapping the magisterium. But why is it exactly a problem anyway? Couldn't we just leave things like they are? Well, not quite. Let's look a bit at the differences. When we look at the scientific image of the world, it is evident that contemporary science presupposes the following traits of the universe. Firstly, the universe is vast and epistemically difficult to know due to its sheer size and certain physical obstructions, such as the characteristics of quantum mechanics. It's the universe itself, on microscopic and macroscopic scale, that forbids us, in a certain way, of course, to get to know what's behind the curtain. Secondly, the universe is dynamic. It is ruled by the principle of constant evolution. Things change their forms in favor of other things gaining their own form. You can think of it as, for example, when we research supernovae, we realize that it is there where heavy elements have been produced. So this is the sort of mechanism behind it. And thirdly, the universe is seemingly uncreated. It has simply existed since time immemorial. And lastly, it's natural, in a sense that its principles are contained within itself. Now, on the other hand, theological approach to the reality is, well, slightly different. The world has been created by a transcendental God. It may have existed since time immemorial, but God is timeless, so causal reason for the universe's existence still lies within the divinity. Next, there's an evident presence of supernatural in the reality, and this is mainly in the form of revelation and miracles. Lastly, the act of creation is very much cryptic and provides no explanation for the universe's mechanics. Now, with that in mind, it is worthwhile, I believe, to lay down a background for further analysis. So, according to Professor Michał Heller, many people to this day are disposed with outdated, enlightenment-based image of the world. Namely, people still hold Newtonian physics as philosophically valid when it comes to setting up a framework for various ontological endeavors. 19th century is widely known not only for its vast industrial progress, but also for its birth of the philosophy known as scienticism. While profound naturalism has found its supporters among modern scholars, such as Daniel Dennett, scienticism, on the other hand, is anything but academically profound. I believe it became a deranged philosophical notion that found its roots in the society, which sadly had begun to value utilitarianism and superficial lifestyle over transcendentalism. Now, going forward, we have to realize the discrepancy between theology and science, and the fact that it may very well stem from 19th century Thomism. While scientists were striving to deliver as much empirical data as possible, Thomists decided to venture back in time in order to restore Philosophia perennis to its former glory. Keep in mind that this is not a bad thing in itself. It's a very good thing. And pious and devout as it may be, it delivered an unprecedented outcome in the form of the difference between scientific and philosophical image of the reality. And many scholars to this day hold the notion that Thomism is in fact outdated due to its background rooted in Aristotelian physics. It is partly true, but I won't go into further details because we don't have time for that. Next, I believe it is of utmost importance to realize that religious faith is, according to Professor Piotr Moskal, based on the perceived credibility of the religious authority. In other words, people don't just believe in anything they have been told. Instead, they hold certain notions as true because an authority whom they have put some trust into, for example, they shared some religious dogma with them. Therefore, they believe in it. Yes, because the source is valuable and you can trust it basically. Therefore, the crisis that I have referred to is in fact the crisis of the authority. That is due to various problems fairly hard to tackle. Now, one of these problems is, sadly, I believe, non-overlapping magisteria. And despite my initial critique of Thomism during this presentation, there's also a ray of hope that actually shines from this philosophy. And as stated by one of the most prominent Polish Thomists, Professor Mieczysław Krąpiec, Thomism is founded on an enlightening idea that reality is one and plural. There are no empty spaces between the transient reality and transcendent divine reality. It is but one world, one cosmos, which is merely ordered according to various subtleties of its shapes and forms. The theory of analogy provides, according to Krąpiec, a solid proof that reality is plural. In other words, we can safely say that our world is multi-layered entity. And this is very important because this proves that, in fact, we are trying to research and get to know one true reality. Yes, so it's not that we get to know different reality from theology and different reality based on natural sciences. It's a one reality, but many methods of getting to know it. Yes. Now, the last part is, well, we have to remember that NOMA proved to be an effective yet flawed methodological tool. While it has delivered a meaningful demarcation line, it has also caused a set of issues, namely the inability of tackling problems such as the relation between the concept of original sin and the theory of evolution. Many people claim that explaining this issue through the means of hermeneutical analysis isn't enough, and it is intellectually tempting to actually decipher once and for all the true reality of Eden and our spiritually crippled state. Now, could we say that Professor Richard Dawkins was right all along and that his exponential critique of Gould's theory was well-founded? Well, Dawkins proposed that there wouldn't be any problem with non-overlapping magisteria unless religion hasn't been making strictly scientific claims about the nature of the reality. This is only partly true because we can already see that Professor's notion has somewhat biased, how should I put it, biased scienticism-based backbone. Yes, in other words, one demarcation line is necessary for upholding the order of various intellectual discourses, we could potentially benefit from loosening the ties of NOMA to enable philosophically broader view in theology, such as those found in, for example, Leuven Thomism. And for the last part, to sum things up a little bit, I do not believe in revolutions. Instead, I believe in evolution, namely the one that lets us uncover more meaningful philosophical approach to the reality. The potential results of such evolutions are following. The necessity to expand the field of academic inquiries that various religious teachers and priests undergo. In order to establish a more science-inspired theology, there is a need for a deepened understanding of science-related faculties that can be found, for example, in philosophy of nature, physics, biology, etc. And that will conclude this presentation. Thank you very much. Now I am open for the questions.
Thank you for your talk and for keeping time intact. We have a few minutes for questions, if there are any. Maybe I can ask one very simple question. You said that in the scientific image of the world seems to be seemingly uncreated. As far as I understand, for me it seems like the uncreatedness is the notion that is not within the scientific language, let's say. We just assume there is world and you experience or you make models of it in the scientific models. So could you maybe expand on what do you mean by seemingly uncreated world?
Oh yes, of course. So first off, there's a difference between strictly scientific explanation of the reality. Yes. So when we speak about a scientifically crafted model of the universe, it differs from what I call scientifically influenced image of the world. Yes, because image of the world is a depiction that we use for our own purposes. And so in this case, it is more of a philosophical tendency among many scientists and people who, how should I put it, believe in science only and try to extrapolate certain scientific models on the reality. Now, if I would have to expand the idea of uncreatedness, it would be simply the fact, or maybe more like the observation, the notion that stems from the observation that the universe is contained within itself. So we do not really see anything, in quotes, outside of it, yes? We do not see the transcendence. We can, of course, try to deduce it from a variety of different, sources and thought processes like St. Thomas Aquinas did. But nevertheless, it is a, how should I put it, maybe it is something that is pushing, it's a notion that pushes itself towards us, that the reality is uncreated. We see the universe as something that has existed since time immemorial. We do not really see like the obvious traces of any kind of intelligent absolute, yes, like the one that is proposed in Christianity, for example. So to sum things up a little bit, I believe it's what I have presented here is more of a scientifically influenced model of the reality, which is merely a imagination. I tried to provide a certain type of explanation as to why people still strive to stick to to this kind of scientism, or perhaps like really narrow-minded naturalism. So I try to portray that. I'm not sure if I have did very well in that regard, but I hope that answers your question.
Okay, at this portion, yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, we are out of time also, so thank you very much. We can thank once more.